Hello and welcome to the Nitty Gritty. I am Jon Sauber, Penn State men's basketball writer at the Center Daily Times. He is Tim Frazier. Tim, how are we doing?
Man, good, man. How about yourself?
Doing good. It is. It's a weird time of year, right? Like college basketball is really starting to ramp up. The NBA is starting to ramp up. We have one more college football game tonight that by the time you listen to this, will be done and over with, and we'll be on to pretty much just basketball season. So it's that weird middle ground for me where I'm like, football's over, but there's still stuff to be done with that, and then you're starting to ramp up into like, going to more basketball games and everything like that. So fun time of year, a little less stressful.
Yeah, man. I'm in Houston at the moment, so a championship game is here tonight. I must say, from our last show, I was wrong on both ends. I picked Texas and Alabama, and should have won. And Michigan and Washington both won. So I got no stake in the game tonight. I got no stake. What about you?
Yeah, so I said it would be Bama and Washington, I think, which, one out of two ain't bad. And if Bama's center could snap the ball, I think I probably would have had 2 for 2 on that one. But I covered Michael Penix a little bit when I was out in Indiana. I covered Kalen DeBoer a little bit when we both overlapped for like a very short period of time in Indiana. And so I'm a little bit partial to those guys. Plus that Washington offense is a lot of fun, and whatever gets this game to being high scoring, I'm all for. I think I'm probably pulling for Washington in this one, but either way, like it's going to be a really good game, really exciting one that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, same.
I assume. Are you going to be at? It's in Houston. I mean, I know. What are the excuses there?
I got invited to go, and for me, it's just I don't know. When you don't really have a stake in the game, for me, it's just kind of like, all right. And I believe another national championship is gonna be in Houston sometime soon. Like, I don't know. I just crowded traffic. It's gonna be a while. It's just and to top it off, it's raining here today too. It's supposed to rain all day today. Even though the game's inside, but still. So I don't think I'll go. But
listen,
shout out to all the people that's gonna go.
Yeah, you're exactly like me from that standpoint, and that like it's like so I've gone to tons of games in the past for like fun and stuff, and it's like buddies will invite me to a Sixers game. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a good time. And you get like the day before the day, I'm like, man, you gotta drive there, you gotta wait in the car a little bit, you gotta park. It's like I can watch it on TV. It's fine. Yeah. Like it's not a big deal. But no, I think that is very relatable, and honestly, like it sucks because from a work standpoint, that kind of happened with me on Sunday. We'll get into this. Penn State plays at the Palestra. Naturally, it snows like 8 inches here in Center County on Saturday, so I couldn't get out for the game, and it was still snowing a little bit, and the roads weren't great Sunday morning, so I got stuck at home. Like I couldn't even go to the game, and the arena that is my favorite to watch games in, which sucks that I didn't get to go to that, but fortunately for Penn State, they got a win. That was that put them at 1-1 this week against the 2 Michigan schools, and a win they really needed because that Thursday night game against Michigan State was it was pretty tough, and I think there was some potential for a downturn. Like had they lost that game, right? If you lose that game, then lose to Michigan, you can the snowball starts rolling downhill a little bit. And I think they really needed to get that win on Sunday to kind of get them back on track.
Honestly, I'm proud of the guys because I think when you look at the previous games and how the season has gone, like we saw how they lose in the tournament earlier, they lose and then it becomes a 3-game loss into a 4-game loss. And here, just to get beat, how bad they got beat at Michigan State, and to turn it around and start off slow. They're down to Michigan, start off slow, but to ramp that up and turn that game around and to win it, man, I'm proud of the guys, man. They fought, and at the end of the day, we look at it's still early, but we look at what we always say: you got to be 500 in the Big Ten. We look right now, you're 2-2. We're a little early, but still, at the end of the day, you're still 2-2. It's funny. Yeah, I know you probably saw that. I saw someone tweet this. He said Penn State men's basketball was able to do something that the Penn State football team hasn't done in a long time, and that's beat Michigan and Ohio State in the same season. So you got to give props to the team, especially right now. And I'm happy for them. And, obviously you want to go 2-0 as a player and as a fan, as a coach, but splitting that 1-1 and really taking care of business at the Palestra in Philly, in Pennsylvania, where that's Penn State's big thing. We want to recruit Philly. We want to be able to get that stuff done. So to be able to do that, go there and win in a sold out packed arena, where like we talked about last week, how hot it is and sweaty it is, and they had the fans behind their back to be able to do that and come away and pull it a win and do it how they did it. Props to them for sure.
Oh, and you mentioned, you gotta win at home in the Big Ten. Like this was a home game for them, and frankly, it's the best home court advantage that they're going to have all season, and that's part of I think what really made this an important game for them to get. Because if you don't get it when you have that kind of crowd behind you against a Michigan team that is good but not great, is dealing with its own stuff that we might get into later, like it is. I don't know. It can put you behind the 8 ball real quick because the schedule does not get easier either. Yeah, they got Northwestern and Purdue coming up, and Northwestern just beat the Michigan State team that smoked Penn State on Thursday night. And like you said, it didn't start great. They were a little behind the 8 ball at first. They looked like they were kind of the same team that lost the Spartans. Right, they're down by as much as 14 in the first half, and 10 at halftime. And you go into it, and it's like, well, what's the answer, right? Because they're not playing all that well. They're not forcing as many turnovers as they need to. Things are a little bit too easy for Michigan on the offensive end, and then they turn it around, end up scoring a bunch off turnovers. Ace Baldwin leads the team with 25 as they need him to, and I think that is going to be an important development the rest of the year, right? Because we've seen Kanye Clary has been the leading scorer most of the season. We haven't seen Ace is not like some prolific scorer or anything like that. You know what I mean? He's not going to go out average 20 a night or anything like that. But they need him to have these kind of nights where he can get 20 to 25 when the team just kind of doesn't have it in other places. And I think they got it Sunday, and they're going to need it in other big moments the rest of the year too from him.
Curious, it's just a thought that just crossed my mind. You look at it as like, I wish that we had the analytics guy or whatever guy we could talk to in their earpiece and they can look this up. You know how they do it on TNT and all the TV shows.
That's right.
But it's like you want to know, like, what's the record when Ace is the leading scorer of the team?
Yeah.
Because, yes, Kanye is obviously not trying to take away from Kanye what he does, but he has been, the leading scorer for most of the season, and as far as that goes. But what's the record when Ace is the leading scorer? Because I think if we look that up, I think they're probably undefeated when he's the leading scorer when it comes down to it. That maybe that might be the secret to what's needed. Not saying that we don't need Kanye Clary to score, because obviously we need him to score to even stay in the game and be there. But when Ace is on, he's scoring as well as facilitating and having big games like that. I'm sure they got to have a high win percentage.
Well, and it's not just that either, right? It's shows or not just. I don't want to say it's not just that. It's what comes behind that too, right? It means usually when you have Ace involved offensively, it means he's really putting it out there defensively, right? Because it means he's getting points in transition, because he's forcing turnovers at the point of attack, and
he's getting to the free throw line. Yep.
Yeah, and they need that out of him. And you mentioned it just anecdotally from the last 2 games. He puts up 25 against Michigan, they win. He puts up 2 against Michigan State, and they get destroyed. There's a through line here in how he performs and how they perform. The one game that comes to mind that they didn't win, where he put up a lot of points, is the VCU game. VCU game, yeah. And you can kind of explain that away, because it's like, of course, he's trying to, you know what I mean, put it out there against his old team, right? Like he's trying to be that leading scorer in some sense, and I think we kind of saw that. Plus, Kanye goes out with an injury, so you're not playing with your full complement of guys. So, but yeah, I think him getting to 20-plus points, him getting to 15-plus points is really important for this team, because he's only hit that mark of 20. I'm looking at it now twice this year, Michigan and VCU, right? Like, and they need him to be able to get to that number. Not like I said, he's not going to do it every night. You don't have to do it every single night. But they play better when he plays better, right? And they need that to be the case more often, and they need him more engaged defensively. Because the other part about that is with the press, when the head of the snake isn't putting it all out there, isn't going full bore, it makes the rest of the press difficult, because if you don't have the guy on the ball defending all out, then everything can fall apart behind him pretty easily.
Right. There's gaps. You got to have. There's going to be gaps in that press. There's going to be gaps in the effort that's being given, especially because other players, they follow the leader. You know what I mean? And Ace has been given this role of being a leader, and he has to lead by example. He has to go out there. He has to give it his all. He has to lead by example. And you can tell it, like, we're all human. When we're scoring and we're making, baskets, and obviously we play better, you know what I mean? And I'm talking about myself. I think that you can always say, well, you can't be a feel-good player. But at the end of the day, when you're not making shots, it's kind of hard to kind of not get that out of your head. Only the great ones, and, we talk about great ones, are able to do that and still be able to push that in the back of their mind. But for him to be able to score, his defense picks up, his offense picks up. He gets others involved as well. So their game is playing well and getting better as well. So I think that's just all part of what, when you look at it, what might be the key to success for Penn State basketball this season.
Yeah, and he is, that shouldn't be all that surprising, right? There's a reason Mike Rhodes brought him with him from VCU. He is the guy that they want to be that guy. He's only been the leading scorer. Shout out to, again, producer Amir, who has helped us on this front, brought him up last week. He's only been the leading scorer twice this year. Been VCU and Michigan, and that I think that shows a little bit of them needing him to step up. And them needing him to be that kind of guy. But I think the other part about this Michigan game that stood out to me anyways was it felt like the collective intensity was there in the second half. Yeah. And I wonder how much of that was just the crowd in the environment, because it kind of, when you're in that place and the crowd is backing you, it's put up or shut up time, because if that crowd can't get you going, then the BJC crowd's never going to get you going. And I think they did a good job of rallying around the support that they had. I do wonder, though, like I said, that's the only time they're going to have it this year. Like, does that necessarily bode well for other home games when maybe they don't have that crowd? And are they going to need the crowd to be more bought in, right, when they go back to the BJC? Because it is not going to be the same.
Yeah, it's tough. You know what I mean? But I think it might have been Ace what he said after the game. He was like, "Man, I wish all our home games were here," or somebody said that. And obviously you get that experience and you feel that, you want that. But that doesn't mean that the BJC can't be like that, because I played when the BJC was like that. Sometimes it's just hard to get it, every game. But at the same time, those things happen when you win. So if the team continues to win, the fans come out. I don't know if they still got to do the dollar dog nights and all that other stuff to get more fans, but that's what happens. And again, winning helps and solves most of the problems when it comes to talk to sports. So for that, I know you won't be able to get the same intensity as the Palestra, because that is just like you mentioned earlier, just a historic venue in all of Pennsylvania and just even the United States as well. So I don't know if you can get that, but I think you can get something like that, especially at the BJC.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be, pretty important the rest of the way, because that next home game's coming up, right? Like, right. Northwestern is not to be messed with, as Tom Izzo will tell you. This is a Northwestern team that is physical, it can shoot, and it has a guy that you and I talked about last week in Boo Buie that can light up any team in the country. And Penn State definitely qualifies as any team in the country. And that's coming this Wednesday too. And Taylor Battle's going to be on the bench, and there's going to be some, emotion for him, I'm sure, being back in the BJC again. It's not the first time he's been there, I don't believe, but like, it's a different environment. And so I think we'll find out like how much this team can build off of something, because again, Northwestern it's the real deal. And then if you can't overcome Northwestern, then you got to head to Purdue. And spoiler alert, I don't think Penn State's going to beat Purdue, because I don't think many teams are going to beat Purdue, specifically in Mackey Arena, which makes Wednesday's game against the Wildcats, even more important as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, before I jump to that piece, I do want to give DeMarco Dunn some credit that he was huge in that game against Michigan, because obviously you talk about Ace doing what he's doing, which we'll be expecting to do. Kanye getting his numbers too, but they're having that third guy to, he was able to knock down threes and get hot, man. I credit him too to really help in that Michigan win. But to go into, what we talked about, this Northwestern game, we got you look at the schedule, we got Northwestern at home and you're going to Purdue to face the number one team in the country. You hate to say this as a coach, but shit, we got to split it. Yeah. Now, our goal was to split. Not saying that we can't beat the number one team in the country, because we just saw Northwestern beat them, 2 weeks ago at Northwestern. But, things happen. Basketball guys play parts, and you're able to do certain things and that nobody expects you to do. Teams get knocked off every day. So not saying that you can't do it at Purdue, but, you want to walk away with this and, 3-3. If you can beat, like you just said earlier, take care of home court, if you can get that to beat Northwestern, and something that will be an emotional game for Taylor and for Boo Buie, just to be able to say, hey, man, we're back in, Penn State, where, my brother became my brother, as far as like famous and how great of a player he was, and all that emotion definitely going to weigh in and play a part of it. you just hope that, Penn State comes ready to play. You got and still and put the last game behind, but still ride on the same wave that got you back in that second half to win that game and take that over to that Northwestern game. Now you've been at home for now 5 to 7 days, 10 days. School starting back up next week, I think. So hey, man, it's right there. It's time for you to be able to split these 2 games if possible.
School's starting back up today, actually, which means I go downtown way less again until we get to like May, and then I'll start going back down there. But
I thought it started today is Monday. You all right?
Yeah, today's Monday. Yeah, no, it caught me too. I was not expecting this. I planned to go to a couple places downtown to eat before they got back, and I realized we're already here. So no, this is an important part because they, you mentioned that splitting it, they're pretty much like going to have a home followed by an away in some sense or another the rest of the season, right? Only 2. There are a couple times where they have 2 away games in a row, and there's one time they have 2 home games in a row. But for the most part, it's alternating. Yeah. And so I think you essentially have to take advantage of that. You need to look at every 2-game, section of the schedule as this has got to be a split. And this is going to be the biggest one the rest of the way because, there are other really difficult games that, you look at their next home games against Wisconsin after Northwestern. Okay, maybe you don't necessarily expect them to pick that one up. But then it's Ohio State on the road, who you already beat once this year. Mm-hmm. And so you believe you have a chance. Then it's, okay, Minnesota at home, that's a beatable team. Rutgers on the road, who's struggled, right? And then Indiana on the road, who struggled this year. And so you go down the list, and it gets a little bit, I don't want to say easier because nothing is ever easy in the Big Ten for Penn State, as we've seen over the years. But it does lighten up a little bit. So if you can get it here, it kind of gives you the confidence that you can get it the rest of the way too, right? Like it's not necessarily just about like, okay, this is a difficult part of the schedule. It's about making sure those guys feel good because we've seen that this team, when its emotions are good, when everyone's bought in, is when they're going to play well, right? Like they don't. I don't want to say they don't handle adversity well, but we've seen that there have been times where adversity is struck and things have gotten bad quickly, right? And so I think it's important for them to maintain, kind of high level vibes, right? Like for lack of a better term, like, and make sure that everyone's feeling good because it's going to be a grind, right? And with the effort that they put in defensively with that press, like that's the other thing. It could be easy for these guys to get worn down as they deal with both the physicality of being in the Big Ten and the intensity of the way they play. So that's what, like I said this before, we're going to find out how well this press works in the Big Ten this year. I think we're going to learn a lot about how successful Mike Rhodes can be at Penn State. And it's kind of here, right? Like that's part of the reason they got back in the Michigan game. They were able to win. How does it do against a team like Purdue that has an elite big that's one of the best in the country? How does it do against Northwestern, a team that has an elite elite lead guard, and like the kind of guy that can beat a press by himself? We'll find out, right? Like I think these are going to be 2 really important games for determining what the future of this program looks like. Yeah,
it sounds like we say that every week. Hey, these next 2 games, it's going to let us know what this team is. Again, I just want to say I am proud of how they bounced back from that Michigan State because I did see that as another snowball effect. And because of the way they lost, it wasn't, I hate to call that, but it wasn't a moral victory. But I'm assuming that they had to have watched that film and learned something to be able to change that and pick it up in the second half against Michigan and do it and get that win. So the only thing I'm looking forward, I'm looking down the schedule, like you said, and they're winnable games here. And, to stay closer to 500, you got to win some games that the bettors are going to say that you're not going to win, but they're possible. And so I'm proud of the team, how they bounced back because you did say, man, like we've seen them hit adversity. And I want to say this is one of the first chances that adversity has hit that they bounced back and being able to take care of business. So hopefully now that's the trend that they're going with and they're going to continue to move that way when adversity does strike, that they can bounce back and put it past them.
And you mentioned like the projections for who win games, right? Like you look at Ken Pom, they're now projected to go 7-13 in the Big Ten. I believe they've been as low as 4-16 at different points this year in that projection, which I think is a positive sign, right? Because there are a lot of these games that are going to be coin flips. And so they just need a few of those coin flips to turn their way to go from, 7-13 to 10-10. Now, oddly enough, I don't know that 10-10 gets them to the Big Ten tournament. Usually you get to 500 and you're there. But because of the non-conference struggles, suddenly you're at 16-15, and that's not an NCAA tournament team, right? And you need to play well in the Big Ten tournament. But I do think, if they can take care of business against teams like Michigan, if they can take care of business against teams like Indiana, Minnesota, Rutgers, even a team like Maryland that is has been struggling this year that they play to end the regular season. Who knows how Maryland will be playing at that point? If you can beat those kind of teams, like you can lock up an NIT bid. And I think that's something we talked about in the preseason. I think an NIT bid is a success in year one, right? Like that is given all of the turnover, given all the changes on the coaching staff, given the having to build a new culture and everything. Like I think that's a major success. And I think that's a realistic benchmark to set at this point. Now, they fall short of that, then I think it's fair to start asking questions about where things went wrong. They fall really short, and it you know what I mean? It ends up being what it looked like a couple weeks ago. Then you and I will start asking even more questions about what this is supposed to look like and how it's going to go. Yeah. But for right now, like they're in a good spot. I know 7-13 as a projection doesn't sound like a good spot, and you and I talk about splitting and everything. But I think when you are one of the, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 bottom teams of the Big Ten, you should be shooting for like that 7-8 win mark, right? And then you build on it for next year. You mentioned this a few episodes ago, building on those vibes to make sure that, the 23 or the 24-25 season is even better because you're not, you know what I mean? Everyone's more comfortable with each other. Everyone is more, you know what I mean? They're more in sync. The culture is set and guys know what the expectation is. And then suddenly you can take off in that second year rather than falling back or like, you know what I mean? The NIT becomes like, this is what's expected again.
Right. I agree 100%. Again, not trying to look too far down the line, but that's our job to do that. For them, they just got the next game, and that's Northwestern. So again, just for them to focus on the next game at hand, and if they take care of that one, then focus on Purdue and go out there and shock the world. That's the only thing you can say. I said that when they went to Michigan State, but now you get that's the good thing about the Big Ten. You get another opportunity. Now it's even a better opportunity to shock the world because there's not going to be anybody that's going to believe you that you're going to go in there at Purdue besides the people in the locker room that think you guys can go in there and beat them. So, but first and foremost, they got to take care of Northwestern. And, that's a winnable game. Like you said, they got a lead guard. I think Penn State has, 2 lead guards and with aces established himself in the A-10 and even now, and then declare his emergence. So, it'll be fun to watch that battle. I'm looking forward to, obviously the defensive ace and what he brings and those guys and against Taylor's brother and Boo Booey and what he's going to bring. Because, there's going to be a lot of this going on, and it'll be a fun matchup to see who's going to be victorious in that side matchup of the guards going against each other.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think that's kind of the key point for how that game goes. And we mentioned like that family aspect. There was some of that at the Palestra too on Sunday, right? Mm-hmm. There was Penn State assistant Jimmy Martelli was coaching against his dad, Phil, who, of course, longtime St. Joe's head coach. A lot of connections there. That game that actually got set up because Mike Farrelly, who was on staff with the previous regime under Micah Shrewsbury, helped set that up against Michigan. Of course, played under Phil Martelli at St. Joe's, and Phil Martelli was actually the head coach for that game, which I think is very interesting, given that Juwan Howard has been, how do I put this? It hasn't gone as well, I think, as Michigan fans expected, right? Like we talk about, you mentioned they beat Ohio State and Michigan, something that Penn State hasn't been able to do in football, and basketball does it in Mike Rhodes' first year. And I think part of that is the expectation. I'm curious, have you ever had a situation like that where there is someone either – not necessarily family even, but someone that you're that close with, right? That is going across from you in like a very real moment. I'm not talking like pickup or whatever. Like I'm talking like this is like Phil Martelli on some level was helping coach for Juwan Howard's job, right? Like they're trying to maintain what they've got there and keep that staff intact. Meanwhile, Jimmy Martelli's on the other side as an assistant, kind of like when they beat Phil Martelli in Michigan, it's kind of putting his dad's job status in a little bit of jeopardy. You know what I mean? Like this is a very real thing where I'm sure the emotions of it have to be incredibly high.
I'm trying to think. I don't know if I had something as serious as that as like family. But I don't know. The first thing that pops in my mind is me going up against like my friends, in the NBA. Like, Dame and I became very, very close, and he was huge in my development in my first couple of years in Portland. And then I leave and I go to New Orleans. And I remember the first game, like against each other. It was like, I don't want to call it emotional, but it was like, man, it was a battle. Like you could pull it up on the clips, and I'm fouling them hard, like it's going over. I think one time I had an M1 and I like stepped over him, like it was. And meanwhile, this is my brother, like till to this day. So I think that's the only thing I can kind of just remember that. And then like, hey man, we're battling against each other during this game, and then afterwards, it's kind of like, man, wish you nothing but the best. Let's touch, you know what I mean? You guys got to get this next one. You got to get in the playoff hunt. We're trying to do all that type of stuff in. But at the end of the time, during that time, it's kind of like, hey, this game means more just us as in battling against each other than it does necessarily the outside looking in. And I'm sure that's how it was between his son and father. Like, yeah, they want to win, not necessarily if it's bragging rights, but hey, you do want to win that game so you can be like, hey, man, I won the game later on down the line to be able when you're having a drink or something or at dinner. But it is weird because when you talk about Jon and, that job security that's going on over there, if he has it, if he's losing it, and then, as a son to come and kind of win that battle is kind of up in the air. You don't want to hurt your dad, but at the same time, you have to do what's best for you and the team at the moment. So it's a weird situation, but I think you kind of look at it as when we step on the court, in between the lines, it's me against you, you against me. And then afterwards, we're family. And that's how I've always looked at it when I played against old friends, teammates, or even guys that I've been very, very close with.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned Dame. Shout out to him for giving. I saw the clips of him giving the new shoes out and everything. The University of Washington players, and of course, if you look in the background of that, you can see Tim Frazier looking real skeptical of what's going on there. It feels like you were the look on your face said you didn't know about the shoes either. Like you were kind of looking like, what are we doing here?
So they're playing the Rockets, and I stopped by the hotel. I'm like, hey man, I'll stop by the hotel. So we're talking, and then he's like, man, I forgot, man, I got to run and do this thing for Washington football. You want to come? I'm like, man, how long is it going to be? Because I'm like, if he's going to be there a couple hours, I'm like, man, I'm just going to go home. I'll see you the next day. He's like, no, it's going to be like 10 minutes. We're going to go there. I'm like, all right, cool. So we go, and we're sitting there. Then I look and like, it's honestly, it's just how much they built up the city right now because of the game. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's pictures, teams, everything. So we go there. And for me, it's kind of, even for him too, like we talked about it, like it's kind of weird to understand how famous he is. Because now we looking at NIL deals, like these guys are making money. These are grown men. I'm sure a couple of them probably even have kids. Who knows? But he's like, man, I don't know. Are they going to really be that excited for me to come give them shoes? So he shows up and then they all go, wow. Like, oh my God, this is Dame. And he said so you see the face on mine because I'm like, I'm kind of weird about it too. I'm sitting there like, damn, man, y'all about to play in a national championship. This is Dame. Like, I get it, but I don't get it at the same time. So that's kind of how I felt about it. But it was cool to see their reactions and how excited they were to be able to get his shoes, get the gear, and take the pictures with him. Man, they were super excited about that too. So man, I hopefully good luck to them tonight, in the game. But it was, for me, the face you talk about, because I'm sitting there just I'm sitting there like, dang, they really do like it. Dame is really that famous. But for me, he's just another, another guy. Like, I get it. He's, 71 point, top 75 player, all that type of stuff. But like I said, man, I remember when I just scored a layup and I stood over him and yelled and won like 6 years ago. So it's like, so I'm not looking at it. But like, again, man, good luck to those guys tonight. Hopefully it's going to be a good game.
Listen, sounds like you have a reason to go and a rooting interest as far as I'm concerned. No.
Then it's all right, do I root for the Big Ten? It's Michigan, but then it's like Michigan has had all this stuff going on with Harbaugh. Like, is it they reading signs or whatever? I don't know. I don't keep up with it. But I'm like you. I'm a fan. I just want it to be a good game. I think the two games before or last week were good games. The Texas-Washington was a good game. Yep. Alabama-Michigan was a good game. You just want a good game. You hate to see a championship be a blowout.
Last year.
Right. Exactly.
Last year when Georgia blew the doors off TCU, wasn't close for a second of that game.
Right.
But no, I'm with you. Can vouch for the shoes too. Have several pairs of Daymates. Very comfy shoe. Great basketball shoe.
Yeah, funny story about that before we move on, John. So when I was in Portland, Dame and I wore the same shoe, same size shoe.
Right.
So, at the time, he would get 2-3 pairs and I would just go in there and take a pair, literally. So I've been wearing his shoes for, throughout my whole career. And at this time, like later on down the road, I'm playing for the Washington Wizards at the time. And I'm with Adidas. But all I wear is Dame, so I would just get my package of shoes. So I got a package of shoes, like his new shoe that came out, and I got it. And I'm thinking like, hey, since I got it, everybody's got it. And it's, so I put it on and I'm wearing it. I'm wearing these new, they were like some taxi driver, whatever colorway. I'm wearing them. And then after the game, like I'm getting these texts from Dame. He's like, bro, when did you get those shoes? And I'm like, shoot, I got them like couple days ago like that. And I was like, I don't even like, he's like, I don't got them. So then he put us in a chat with the rep. Shout out to JR. And he's like, I don't know how he got them. So I wore the shoes before he was able to wear them. I guess they were trying to wait for a specific day, marketing piece or whatever like that. So, but again, I've seen his development when his shoes since the one all the way up, man. And again, they are comfortable. I still wear them today.
Yeah, no, I wear them all the time. I mean, I'm a bit of a sneakerhead, so that won't surprise anyone that I got too many shoes in my closet anyways, but there are plenty of Dames in there too that honestly they're the kind of shoes that I wear them too often, right? Because they're not like overly expensive or anything like that. And I think he's made a point, to make that the case too. So I'll wear them everywhere, which means I do wear them out a little bit because when you're, my size, like you wear shoes out pretty quickly, especially when they're like size 13s. But yeah, no, they're a great shoe. And, I, like you said, I'm rooting for a good game tonight. The semifinals were too good to not have a great national title game to follow it up. Very much looking forward to that. Very much looking forward to seeing what Penn State does over this next 2-game stretch. I think we've said it time and time again. We're gonna learn a lot there, and we will be back again to discuss it the next time we record the nitty gritty. But I think that's a good place to leave it for now. If you want to follow Tim on Twitter, you can find him at TimFraze23. You can find me on Twitter at Jon Sauber, JonSauber. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great day.